Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Living Tantra podcast. Today, I am here with a return guest, Adam Gainsburg. Adam was on with me early in the launch of the Living Tantra podcast, and he's back today to speak with us about a very, very essential topic in embodiment. But first, a little bit about Adam. Adam Gainsburg founded Soul Sign, which holds the three branches of his work: sky, breath, and heart. As an astrologer, Adam conveys through the sky branch of his work really the evolutionary capacity of our journey here on Earth. And he portrays this in a way that really teases forth and exalts our own direct relationship to our soul and our blueprint. Breath is an entry into embodied meditation that leads to expanded states of consciousness through directly experienced through our physical reality. And heart speaks to the branch of his work that is his open heart work. And this is one of the most powerful modalities that I've experienced in terms of directly accessing the full spectrum of our human capacity through our courage to simply be naked to our experience. So it's a deeply tantric modality in the true sense, and one of the most direct paths available to Westerners that I've found in terms of embodying and encompassing more of who we are. So, Adam, thank you very much for being here today. It's great to have you back.
Thank you very much, Catherine. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
So, I want to ask you to speak a little bit about the shadow and shadow work. Shadow has become, kind of a sexy phrase these days. Everyone's talking about, yeah, I'm doing my shadow work and it feels really good. And can we just start by you defining the shadow through your vantage point and your lens? Because it gets really confusing, I think, what people are really, really speaking to when they mention the shadow.
Yeah, it is confusing. Whenever truth enters into a culture in which that truth did not originate, it becomes co-opted. It has to, because there's no cultural precedent or ground yet. So there's a lot of shopping, a lot of purchasing and returning going on, a lot of commerce. And shadow, Catherine, I agree with you, is one of the biggest ones. So the word shadow was simply coined by Carl Jung in the last century, just to refer to, and I'm really, really simplifying here, the unconscious self. Cutting to the chase about what it actually is, in my experience, is it is the entire genetically informed or sourced and cellularly supported belief system about myself that I am not able to accomplish and to be what I'm here in this life to accomplish and be. So, from great teachers like Sri Aurobindo and the Mother and others, I've kind of pulled together what was the most inspiring and the most proven to me from those definitions from all the people that I've been blessed to work with over the years in deep, deep work. And that is, the shadow is not our dark self. The shadow is what I was born as. It's my fundamental qualities, like for me being a male, or for me having a gift of astrology. I was born with this. I don't have to practice astrology for my entire life, but that doesn't address the fact that I have a certain affinity and proficiency with astrology. So where I go, Catherine, with this is the shadow reveals my actual nature. My nature. Like the thing about astrology, or the thing about, or for me, or if you're watching or listening to us here, if you have a particular gift or you have just a lifelong love of a certain area on the planet, or learning different languages, or being able to create delicious, beautiful meals for people. These are gifts, as I call them. In other words, these are not just simple choices you're making, that things you like to do. These are deeper than that. The shadow reveals our actual nature, but it does so in a very specific and strategic way. What it does is it says, here's all the things about yourself that you, in your surface personality, which includes your subconscious, don't believe that you are. This is why I boil this down to my clients, without going into a whole teaching with them, is the shadow is everything that you believe you're not. So if you put lots of effort into your life, being a kind person, tending to the feelings or the needs of others, then maybe your shadow might have something to do with self-centeredness, or what I call centered in selfness. Maybe it has to do with a fear to individuate yourself. The shadow is always the antipod. It is the antithesis, cellularly, of what we envision ourselves to be and what our purpose is. Something.
Hold on for a moment. I just want to clarify something here. So in the beginning, you brought in, yes, the shadow is something deep, deep, deep within our genetics too, not just in our personality, which includes our subconscious, but, inherently part of our genetic makeup as well. What would be the purpose of this?
The purpose of the shadow.
From an evolutionary standpoint.
Right. The purpose of the shadow is to make sure that we feel pain, that we feel lost at times, that we experience hurt. Now, that's not really answering your question, but I'm saying it that way because that's the human experience of the answer to your question, which is the human species, the human beings that we are currently, we only usually are most deeply motivated by what hurts. I'm not just talking about motivated to go and be a success in the world and help a lot of people. I'm talking about motivated where you are willing to put the stability of your life currently at risk in order to break into some more aspect or more part of you. And this is the point evolutionarily of the shadow. It's not just instills in us. At birth, we are genetically given these qualities of us that are opposite to what our life's purpose is. Like, Catherine, anyone watching there listening to this, just stop right there, hit pause, and just feel that and go live that. Go see what that does in your psyche. I have these qualities that I, in my personality, deny and refuse to look at or consider, all for the purpose of eventually, when I can stop denying and go in there, I then discover this motivation that drives me, what I call, with a tremendous amount of vitality. not just Shakti moving through my central channel, but my entire being. This tremendous amount of life vitality that fuels me to go and live the fullness that I am, which means living my light and my dark together.
Okay, so this brings up an important point for me. In my experience, meeting my shadow is not something to overcome so that I can become something. You just said living our fullness in both our lightness and our dark. So
Right.
how, when we meet this that's representing all that we are not, or in denial of all that we innately are, how do we become an ally with it, from your vantage point?
How do I become an ally with me through my shadow?
Yes. As opposed
Yes.
to, it's not something that we conquer and that we overcome.
Right, exactly. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to say something here that may not be very popular, which I have learned because I'm old enough now that this is sometimes the best way to serve. The shadow is beyond and before all of our polarized thinking, like our light self and our dark self, our good qualities and our bad qualities, myself and other. That's what your question is pointing to.
Mm-hmm.
The going beyond or going underneath or going before the something I have to get past. If that's where you are in your transformational life right now, you're not at the shadow level. Please don't judge yourself. There's no judgment needed. There's no negativity or cruelty. There's only the opportunity to love and truly self-acknowledge and embrace yourself where you are. But if that's where you are, that this is something that I have to work on and get through, that's where you are. The shadow is underneath all of that. The shadow is the kind of like the air, the space in which your personality gives rise to these thoughts that say, I got to get out of that. I like that. I don't like that. This is where I'm growing. That's not where I'm growing. That's what I'm trying to point to here. Shadow is primordial. It is not the result of how my parents screwed me up when I was younger. That's how deep this goes. And that's what I'm asking people who are really interested in true transformation for the rest of their lives. You have to start here, because if you don't, you will spend the next whatever months or years having this belief that I have to go to that healer or that astrologer or that thing to work on this, to purify or to clarify or to transmute something. But if you don't have the proper context, there's no help here. With the context, however, in contrast, if you have the proper understanding of what shadow is, then you just remove yourself from the rat race and the loop of trying to get past your shit. That's a game. That is literally the source of suffering. If I just get past this negative part of me, I'm going to feel better. I may feel better, but it won't be the source of the things that I don't feel good about in myself. The source of the things that I don't feel good about myself is my unconscious shadow habit of judging me to be something that I need to be more of or less than I am now. You can tell I get all fired up about this because I've worked with hundreds of people who have had this misconception. And rather than explaining it to them, we go into the process to meet the quote issues. But eventually they discover that the issues are just more ways that they've identified themselves to. And when that happens, the floor drops out of their self-image. And when that floor drops out, that is true love. That is true life returning back into that person's life if they're allowing it. But it takes a tremendous amount of courage. Catherine, something else I wanted to share here. It is nearly impossible to self-reflect on our own shadow. Mm. It's more than difficult. Do you understand? Everyone, it's like the thing behind your eyes when you're looking out at everything else outside of that. Or outside, like when I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at you, and I'm looking at them, and I'm thinking about that over there. Shadow is everything already in you.
Mm.
So how are you going to go find it? You need reflections. You need mirrors. You need to look back at your times in your life when relationships didn't go right, when you were hurt, when you hurt, when you were betrayed, when you betrayed, when you were clueless, when you took advantage of. Both sides of all your, let's say, uncomfortable experiences in the past in one's life. Look at all of those and try to get what the common theme is. What's the thread here? What am I not seeing about myself? In order to even begin to answer that question, you have to metaphorically close your eyes and go behind or underneath your self-image of yourself right now. That's extremely difficult, if not impossible, for someone starting out on this path.
Yeah, as you're speaking, I'm reminded, because the shadow it's precognitive in a way,
Yeah.
moments when I've met my shadow, it's almost discovering where I feel inside of me that I just cut, or I just say no to life. And I agree with you. Yes, all of our stories or all of our, the thoughts are innervated from that deeper experience of no, or and it can be shocking. It can be really shocking sometimes when we confront the severity of this presence inside of us.
Yes.
And that's where, I feel shadow work is not for the faint of heart. We're really invited to meet some dark aspects of ourselves. Beyond dark and light is good and bad, but where there is a severity of no yes to life, no choosing or no positivity toward our engagement in life.
Exactly. That's a wonderful way to put it. I mean, collectively, our shadow can be described as just that. Our engagement with our life, with our direct experience. That is what shadow is. And for each of us, it's specific. It's surgically, well, through astrology, you can identify it. And in other modalities too, you can identify it. Well, each modality will have a different framework for describing it, but you can identify and find the shadow in a person. It's not like a recipe or a formula, but a skilled practitioner can go and help you find that. But finding it and identifying that, at worst, what's going to happen is you're going to get a clear description emailed to you from an online report or something that here's my shadow. Great, now you have it. You are no closer to reclaiming all of that life force, all of your love trapped in the shadow.
Yes.
Just because you know what the shadow is in your mind. And this is why I make a huge stink that to do shadow work, you have to consciously choose to be vulnerable in exactly the place where you don't want to be. To be vulnerable. Some people, it's a tremendous feeling of embarrassment. Some people, it's a strong feeling of shame. Other people is body discomfort in an intense, or energy discomfort in an intense way.
You just said something about reclaiming our life force through the shadow. Can you speak to more of that? Because that's a very, very essential indicator of when we're really penetrating into the depths of true shadow work.
Yeah. On a purely energy dynamic view level, the shadow is the biggest repository or reservoir of my pure life force that I was born in. That's what it is. So, just as an example of this, if you're watching or listening to us here, think back to the last time, the most recent time in your life where you were involved in an activity, whether work or play or travel or creating or inventing or helping others or jumping out of an airplane or whatever it is, where you really felt totally in sync with your life. Not just the thrill, but really in sync. Like you were full in your lived purpose. That experience. Okay, now take that. Now invert that. Now shove it into your deep unconscious. That's your shadow. Imagine if we can then go in there and start to open those doors and make inroads and start to create streams, first trickles and then streams and then rushing rivers of access to that much life force all the time. The thing about the shadow is when we do access it and we reclaim that vital life force, it is not necessary to go find outer activities or outer people or outer circumstances in our life to feel and experience that much of us. Because now it's just flowing in everything we do. Brushing my teeth, being confused about my taxes, taking a walk, stubbing my toe, or breaking my ankle and not knowing how I'm going to get help in the middle of the forest. It's all being infused and informed by this reclaimed amount of vital life force. See, this is what I mean by full spectrum humanity also. No, sorry, I interrupted you.
Yeah, so, I mean, essentially, choosing to embark on our shadow work also means that we're wanting to be available to more of our birthright of this life force, right? It's very comfortable not to be available to our vitality or to our full spectrum humanity, as you've coined the term. Yeah.
Yes, totally. Catherine, can I be a little bit of a jerk here?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you for the permission, since this is your show. Most people, most of us, and I absolutely put myself in this category, for most of my life, the deep healing work that I was seeking, I was convinced I was accessing my shadow. And only because I've been at this long enough and I'm stubborn enough and thick enough and dense enough, I have realized I was not. So I want to ask everyone to get really honest with themselves. Do you want to go dark to everything you know about yourself? The things from your childhood or infancy or young adulthood or yesterday that I'm past that, I'm done with that. Are you willing to discover you haven't even scratched the surface of that old issue?
Or even the stories we crafted about those issues to keep ourselves safe in a certain paradigm of how we know ourselves.
Beautiful. That's so much. That's much more realistic, much more practical. And what I'm saying, yes, especially in Western culture, in other cultures I've learned it's not the same. But we in the West, we use story. We make up and fabricate and then distort past events in order to reify who I need to be for myself so that I don't have too much exposure, too fast, too much, too soon to the depth of all of this life force. Literally, the stories we live, I mean the stories that are rooted in fear, the stories that are rooted in ego, are what anesthetizes us from this more raw, pure, and alive, purpose-driven living. The stories are what are massive addiction, not just a Band-Aid. They anesthetize us. We go to sleep. I know I might sound like so intense and harsh about this topic, but I've just sat for so many hundreds and thousands of hours with many people of all kinds of makes and models that this is a common thread through all of it. So if we can be proactive and kind of get to know this, that this is what I'm up against. My developed habit to anesthetize myself, to go to sleep. That's when I really can start to approach my healing and my transformation and addressing my stories and the bullshit that I keep in my head about myself and others and things in life and the meaning of everything close to heart. And then I can really have the proper view and the proper stance when I approach healing work or any kind of inner work.
Yeah, how comfortable are we to put down our filters and encounter reality or the moment even more nakedly? Yeah, or encounter ourselves even more nakedly.
Even more nakedly.
Yeah.
The only way true transformation can happen in a human being is when the vitality of owning my truth, in other words, being myself nakedly, exceeds the amount of vitality I am putting into suppressing it.
Can you say that one more time?
The only way, what I call true transformation or transmutation, occurs is when the amount of vitality I have direct access to, it doesn't meaning I don't have to go out and spend 3 days in a ceremony or go to a sacred land on the planet and get healed and get connected and then come back and live my life. I'm talking about daily living. When I have access to more vitality of my pure, true nature, myself. And the experience of this is the experience of a profound naturalness. This is not some heightened state where you're looking to experience, moksha or you're living in the land of the archangels. True transformation is when the amount of life force I have access to living my truth exceeds the amount of life force I am putting into suppressing my truth from me and the world. All healing work that you have ever done from an evolutionary standpoint, the content of your healing is irrelevant for the purposes of evolution. That's recycled compost. Working through my mother issues, working through my father issues. This happened to me when I was 2. That I did that to that person and I've been ashamed ever since. It's all recycled compost. The thing that triggers evolution of consciousness is the amount of vitality. And vitality is the human experience in our bodies of being expressions of love.
Okay, so I want to ask you to make a distinction here.
Right.
There are a lot of people, breath work, running Shakti, energy attunements, a lot of very intensive central channel meditation stuff. Can you delineate how vitality is different?
Wonderful. This is a big topic. Not a big, but it takes some explaining. Okay. Most simply, it's not different. All those experiences and those modalities and those techniques that you described, they're all ultimately based in vitality. The difference between all of those and what I'm describing here is one can have peak experiences in all of those. Catherine, I'm not sure how you would describe like techniques or modalities.
Yeah.
Okay, modalities.
Yeah, expressions. Great. Yeah.
Oh, expressions. Yeah. So one can have peak experience in each of those expressions, and none of them touch my shadow. That's absolutely possible. Same thing. Someone else could have no access, no conscious awareness whatsoever to any of those expressions, any of those techniques. Their dog dies suddenly, their beloved best friend dies, and they drop into shadow. And through that process, they are transformed for the rest of this life. And if you believe in future lives too, because they have placed a tap permanently in this previous suppressed place. Mm. So my distinction here is it doesn't matter the activities we do, it's what access do we have to our life force, to the truth of our life force, which is vitality, when we're involved in these expressions and these techniques.
Right. And how we're using them, because so often, I mean, I can speak to the heart of this. We can utilize and cultivate our Shakti or our sexual energy to create a buoyancy where we actually skip over some of the denser, compressed material of our subconscious. Yes. Or we can utilize these practices to take us deeper in and enable us to be more available. Yes. And in my limited experience in discovering more of my vitality, there's nothing reached for beyond what I am. It's simply an allowance, an absolute allowance or meeting of me where I'm at. Yeah. And the courage to do this really deconstructs so much of the Western psyche around I'm not enough, or we need to continually strive to get somewhere, or to be something, or to, for some people, for many of us, our whole spiritual path started out as a way, out of our own unworthiness to run away from who we know ourselves to be to become something greater. So the way you speak about vitality, and I've understood it through your open heart work, it really deconstructs everything that takes us out of what is. Mm-hmm. And through that, we inherently meet or discover the perfection or the aliveness or the vitality in simply our isness.
That's beautiful. That's the scariest thing of all I have learned. Yeah. For us humans at our current evolutionary stage, in general, we are most afraid of being happy, being who we are. We're more afraid of that than we are afraid of dying. We're more afraid of that than we are afraid of losing everyone that we love. When I say more, I'm talking about the depth at which we hold on to this fear and we use it to motivate us to keep this away and to keep that close, whatever that is. We are more scared of how spacious and big, naturally full, both within and without, we are.
Here we are, right back at your definition of shadow, which
Beautiful.
Is how we innately suppress who we are.
Yes. I have a phrase that I use in one of the areas of my work, the heart work. The evolutionary purpose of my habits, patterns, and addictions is to guarantee 100% that I do not evolve before I'm ready. And if evolution requires, as part of the process, a full surrender. Here's where that vulnerability I mentioned earlier comes in. A full surrender to the sheer amount of life force that I am imbued with as my divine essence. Catherine, it's just occurring to me in this moment. I guess it's just a kind of an inspiration because I know how sophisticated and mature your audience, or I'm guessing how mature your audiences are regarding deep transformational work. So let me offer something here also. When we are in a process of deep change or transformation like this, it's really, it's very important that we stay true to the truth of the experience. Let me explain what I mean by that. It is so easy for us to become distracted by huge energy rushes, great, huge insights about myself that I haven't known or really gotten yet in my life. So I'm talking about is not just normal waking life, but when we're in the process of shadow work, or, since that's the topic today, when we're really in the process of shadow work, our own or being facilitated or supported by others, it's really important to stay honest with what's most naturally here. As you said, it's an allowance. It's allowing this experience to unfold and me not inserting this or distracting over here or leaving my body subtly in order to enhance or increase or divert what's happening. It's true. The amount of control that I can let go of in these deep transmutative state experiences, that's the efficiency and the quickness with which I'm going to start integrating this in my daily life. So not controlling the process. But the deeper we go from conscious self-image, the harder and harder and harder it is to not control. Because you find where your controlling mechanisms really, like how deep they go. Before we were talking about self-images and stories we paint, especially in Western people. But that's just the surface, kind of superficial subconscious level. When you go deeper than the subconscious into the unconscious, these stories might turn into like full-on alter egos that want to have zero to do with my own happiness and my own fulfillment and my own sense of peace and satisfaction in life.
Yes.
So stay true to what's happening and ignore everything else. Even the insights, even the ahas, because if they're real, they'll come back again later. They will show up because they are of truth. And if they're not of truth, why involve yourself in something that temporarily feels good? That is another trick that's going to fool you again later. Don't.
So Adam, from your perspective, how does one know that they're ready or that it's time or that there's a necessity to start working with their shadow more in depth?
Great. I don't know how to answer that question, Catherine.
I do, based on some of your earlier definition, which is really, we get to a point of such profound suffering in our life.
Yes.
That we can't deny the suffering anymore. We can't, deny it or jump over it or move beyond it, push it away, where we have to go into it.
Yes. Hopefully, Catherine, from my heart, hopefully. Most people who hit that wall, they won't choose. They're not seeing that this is a wall of suffering. They're just seeing this is something that I don't like, and I want to remove it from my life or avoid it happening again. But if we are fortunate enough, and I would use the word aware enough, that we hit the wall of so much of our own suffering, that will motivate us, absolutely. And again, like you started today, our conversation, there's so much being bandied about called shadow work. If people watching or listening to us here are looking for help to work through their shadow, in other words, to reclaim, basically, themselves, use discernment about practitioners you work with. Listen to your heart, listen to your gut. What does your heart say, not your mind? Use your mind, the discernment, the observation of the person, but feel who seems like a fit to do this shadow work. This was one way in shadow work that I was fortunate. I never fall. I can be a complete idiot in so many ways, but in this way, I never felt into like the illusion that I had to like my shadow practitioner. That's a trap I never fell into. So I chose people who put me on edge. Now that's my wiring. That's not everyone, but I'm just saying that really use discernment. You're not going there to this person to be liked. You're not going there to like them. Even the normal definition of safety, when you really get into shadow work, doesn't apply. Because safety, as you well know, Catherine, is a definition of the ego.
Right.
At that current point in time, fast forward 5 years, your safety is going to be much different than it is today.
Right. And our ego works very, very hard to keep us safe from our shadow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You said something about, when we encounter circumstances in our life, that we just want done. We just want them out of our lives. In my own life experience, often that is the entry point or the trigger or the showing me, where I'm simply refusing to face an aspect of myself, and it gets projected on someone else or a situation out of my life because that's much safer to do. And then the stories are, if this person were dead, or if they weren't in my life, or if they, I never saw them again, then my life, then I would have all my shit together. Then it would be perfect. So it's really these places where the wheels come off our car, or we don't have our stuff together, or we don't want people to see us that are encroaching upon our shadow material. And like you said, safety, our understanding of safety changes here because the level of exposure within us that we need to go through when we're doing deep shadow work is very intimate, and it can be very dark. And a lot of times safety is deemed, by how much we keep all of that stuff hidden and unexposed.
Yes, exactly. This is a tricky path. Shadow work is tricky by definition. Remember, the fundamental intelligence, the mechanistic intelligence of having a shadow is to guarantee that evolution of consciousness continues. So it has to be buried deepest so that it's always with us. It's always with us. Life in, life out. Experience after experience, it's always with us. In other words, it's the thing that eventually we go, there's something still here. I've clarified my life about that. I've cleaned up that here. That's going really well. Things are going really well. That's really wonderful. Blah, blah, blah. It's still here. There's something still I can't put my finger on. And what do you think that is? In this conversation, we're saying it's the shadow. But what that is that when I can get inside of that and own that in my body, really somaticize that in the truth of my being, not just energetically through my chakras or whatever, but really own that as what a fundamental basis of who and what I am. Watch out. Here comes your life purpose. Here comes universe reconfiguring herself entirely to support you to complete your evolutionary purpose in this life. When you access shadow and really own it, as I'm saying, and that takes time. This takes time. Every one of us is different, but this doesn't happen with a few sessions or a few months. This is a lifelong of working through it and really and letting back in the intelligence of the life force that I've suppressed to gradually replace all the stories that have taken over my body shape and my anatomy and my digestion and my immune system and my satisfaction at work and my friends and all of that. It has to replace all of that if it needs replacing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when our desire is strong and our need for the safety that all of those filters have provided us up into a certain point begins to relax, we draw exactly who and what we need to help us navigate through the dark woods of the shadow.
Oh yeah. Catherine, it just occurs to me too in this moment, something else I might share with your folks. Again, if you're watching or listening to us here, one step you can do right now before calling anyone or seeking out any help with this is pick someone from your past who you don't like. I don't just mean like, someone like a movie actor, but like someone that you have personal history with. And there's something, it's unresolved. Let's just say that. In your heart, it's unresolved, there's still anger, there's still hatred, there's still fear, there's still jealousy, there's still something, some kind of quote, negative emotion. Write their name out on a piece of paper or find a picture of them and place that picture in your home somewhere. Keep them around, or your memory of them, because it's not really them. It's your relationship to them. This is the whole basic. This is a one form of keep your friends close and your enemies closer. That's not. That aphorism both is from a paranoid place, a competitive paranoia place, but it's also from a true tantric place. Because your enemies are closer to you in the places in you that are ready to transform than all of your best friends. Because they are the polarity of what you're holding secret from yourself.
Beautifully said.
So if a person truly wants to start this, go inside, feel if what I'm suggesting here is one exercise is right for you at this time in your life. Feel if you have room for this, because if this is going to cause more trauma, it's not worth it. And if it is, go and do this. Find the person or people, get the pictures, write their names on, and keep it in a prominent place in your house, on an altar, next to your bedstand, where you keep your glasses, your kitchen utensils, whatever. And what this is going to do is this is going to surround you this is going to continually mirror back to you every day a little bit of how am I feeling about that about that person, that unresolved thing I have with them. And it's going to make you uncomfortable. That's the point. The discomfort is just the emotional nervous system anxiety predilection. That's just the discomfort. You have to be able to sit in the discomfort and go deeper in it. That's where a lot of people, I certainly did, need a lot of help from skilled practitioners to go from discomfort deeper into where the truth starts to be revealed. That's usually where a person really is deciding, am I going to go and do this shadow work or not? Not just the discomfort level. Because if we're still at the discomfort level, that's a huge act of like warrior courage. I really mean that. And unfortunately, that we need to do more than that. You need to go further. So that can be a very useful thing. Because the point of this is not, one more thing. The point of this, everybody, is not to resolve anything with this person from your past. The point of this is to you to get more honest about how you are withholding your love from yourself. That's the point of doing this. So if you're not down with that, go find something else to do. Don't do that.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going.
Oh, okay.
Not
Great.
only does availing ourselves more to our shadow reveal more of our purpose and our gifts, but ultimately our love,
Totally.
the depth of love that we are inside ourselves, and how that spills outward in the form of compassion or sharing. Yeah.
That's beautiful, Catherine. I've observed that so many people who have done real shadow work, they are so kind, not stupidly kind, not like some cloud of kindness. They're an embodied human being. They've earned that kindness and compassion that comes out of themselves towards others. You can feel it. It's like compassion with like sharp teeth.
Yes. Yes. Not idiot compassion.
Not idiot compassion. Exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. So, Adam, you just did a series of 3 webinars on the shadow.
Yes.
The first one, the shadow of our light and our dark. The second one focused on the male shadow, which was incredibly profound, even for me as a female listening to and coming. It brought me up against aspects of my own shadow in a very direct way, and also gave me profound understanding for my son, for some of the men in my life, and some of their expression in the world. And then the third one you did was the female shadow, which was completely alchemic for me on many different levels. So maybe you just want to speak a few words about these. I know they're available through your shop. They are very, very profound. And we'll have the links below in the notes. But if you could just say a few words about maybe what inspired you to come out with with this work at this time, and how you shared it.
Beautiful. Thank you, Catherine. Yeah. The first one was a topic. The first one, it was called "The Shadow of Our Light and Our Dark," because one of the things I go into strongly in that first webinar is our light self has a shadow, and our dark self also has a shadow, and that's really important to make that distinction if you're truly honest about the power to be reclaimed from shadow work. It's the dark self is not the shadow. So I go into all explaining that. Some of the things I shared here today in our conversation come from that webinar, but it was a long one. I think it was an hour and a half, an hour and 45 minutes. And there's 1 or 2 kind of experiential guidance there in real time, but mostly it was to transmit. So for people to have the recording or to listen or watch, have the recording, stop and really take in what's being said and apply it to themselves in that moment. What's coming up for them? What are they feeling? The second and third, the male and the female, I really wanted to focus specifically on each of us, each of the genders of our species, because the shadow plays out differently based on the relationship with our source, essentially, with mother. I don't mean our biological mother only, but capital M, archetypal mother. The shadow, the structure of shadow in a male psyche is fundamentally different than that of a woman, because a man is not the same as the source that gave birth to him. And likewise, the shadow of a woman, in order to truly understand that structure within a woman's psyche and her body, you need to understand that she comes from, or her source is of the same nature as she is. And that was the source. That's what inspired me to offer those two, to really explore that. And huge changes in my personal life where I got exposed to so much of my shadow that I had no idea I wasn't even tapping. And so that's what really brought this out for me. Also, I was motivated to share with others what I have been and am moving through in myself. And for whatever it's worth, if I could just take the hat off of your guest here and just speak to everybody just as another person, doing our best every day of our life, my life has never been better when I really looked at myself and said, okay, enough of this. Is exactly like what you said, Catherine. I am still suffering. I'm rolling up my sleeves, whatever it takes to get into the heart of this, about why that is. I'm willing to go there, even if it means, for me personally, the ending of this life. Because I'm not interested in parlor tricks. I'm not interested in superficial living. So that was also a personal motivation to offer these shadow webinars now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much. That's why they're imbued with the power and the potency of the transmission that they carry. Because
thank you very much, Catherine. Coming from you, that means a huge amount to me. I got to tell you, it really does.
Yeah. Well, from the vantage point I know you're living your work. So, and that's a gift. And shadow work is slippery, and
yes,
it is absolutely essential for how consciousness is availing itself at this time for evolution. Coming deeper into our human experience, we have to encounter our shadow. Yeah. Thank you so much, Adam. Again, for those of you interested in knowing more about Adam or maybe listening to these 3 webinars, all that information will be below in notes. And again, if you want to hear the earlier podcast we did together, I think it's episode 5, Undressing Tantra. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Catherine, for having me on again.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see you next time.